Okay, welcome back to my channel. It's been a very long time since I've released a video, so here we go. It is now the new year, 2021, and we're starting off the year very well. Ireland has gone into a very serious lockdown, so serious that I'm out of a job for the moment. So I've got some free time. Let's get into it. So the next paper we're going to look at now is from the Journal of Archaeological Science Reports, volume 35, and it is published. It's meant to be published in February of this year. So we're looking at the very early digital release of this paper. So the title of it is Throughout the Generations, Learning Processes and Knowledge Transmission Mechanisms as Reflected in Lithic Assemblages of the Terminal Lower Paleolithic Levant. And this is by Ella Asaf. So the one of the things I love about Science Direct is they've got these highlights which neatly summarizes the paper in a few very short sentences. So the highlights here for this paper are as follows. Social learning is known to have played a key role in human cultural evolution. Learning processes are reflected in archaeological findings including stone tools. Middle Pleistocene Qesem cave inhabitants regularly engaged learning processes. Technotypological spatial analyses of cores enable their characterization. And finally, forms of learning included trial and error mechanisms and sharing of knowledge. So without further ado, let's go into the abstract. Social learning and knowledge transmission mechanisms are known to have played a key role in human cultural evolution. Findings from Middle Pleistocene Qesem cave, which dates from about 420,000 to about 200,000 years ago, suggests that the cave's inhabitants learned and shared knowledge about stone tool knapping and other adaptive skills throughout the recurrent human occupation of the cave. Here, Ella presents the results of a technotypological and spatial analysis of over 1,000 flint cores originating from 12 distinct lithic assemblages of the cave. She will argue that the spatial expressions of clusters of cores reflecting skilled and unskilled knapping enable the characterization of social learning mechanisms practiced by the cave's inhabitants. Her analysis suggests that different areas of the cave were dedicated to initial stages of knapping and to systematic high-skill production of laminar items. A unique group of cores reflecting both skilled and unskilled knapping was also identified, mainly in the vicinity of the hearth. Forms of learning included trial and error mechanisms and sharing of knowledge. These social learning mechanisms led to high proficiency in stone tool knapping and especially in laminar production, a significant technological innovation in the Levant at the end of the Lower Paleolithic period. A very, very interesting paper that looks at the spatial distribution of all of these lithics across the cave floor and tries to extrapolate some conclusion that might help explain why these stone tools are spread out the way they are across the cave floor. So I think I want to do a bit more reading into this, so I'm just going to zip on down to the discussion and read that section. And hopefully it'll satisfy my curiosity. So let's move on down. The flints are actually quite nice. Really nice. Nice colour. now. So the discussion and conclusion are all kind of mapped into one. So let's have a look at the discussion and conclusions. So Ella presented a techno-typological spatial analysis of flint cores from 12 lithic assemblages excavated in the lower Paleolithic Qesem cave. The goal was to characterize social learning mechanisms reflected in clusters of cores produced by both skilled and inexperienced nappers through the study of generally synchronic assemblages. These cores indicate that napping was regularly taught in the cave. Novice nappers learned through a combination of trial and error, self-experiencing of napping basics, and some sort of expert guidance through a sharing of information. So all of this information will be in the description below. You can check out the paper for yourself if you can access it. Of course, university students will be able to access these papers for free. Well, technically not for free. They pay when they pay for the university fees. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications on future videos here. In the southern area, for example, we see indications that inexperienced nappers practiced here on their own. The dearth of laminar and shaped items, the selection of low quality materials, and their unsuccessful napping and cores showing repeated napping mistakes with no attempt at correction. But in other areas of the cave, expert nappers engaged in systematic, standardized, high-skill production of Ammudian laminar items, a significant technological innovation in the lower Paleolithic Levant. Their skills included the informed selection of nodules with characteristics suitable for serial production of blades and the creation of prismatic or pyramidal cores with non-faceted striking platforms. This required sophisticated technological knowledge, planning abilities, motor and cognitive abilities, qualities which might have characterized the new post-Homo erectus hominin species that inhabited the Levant in late lower Paleolithic times. Such innovation also must have required well-established knowledge transmission mechanisms, as demonstrated in this study. Around the hearth, the prominent presence of cores reflecting 2 generations of blank removals indicates that Qesem nappers shared stones. Experienced nappers might have therefore shared their knowledge, even if indirectly, by allowing previously shaped but not fully exploited cores in their inexperienced counterparts, who then used them as learning tools. I argue that these cores allow for a better understanding of napping basics and also represented a specific technological tradition practiced at the site, including for the production of blades. The process of item removal from these cores might have been intentionally halted in order for them to be shared and passed around group members for learning processes. As Qesem Cave is located in an environment rich in good quality flint sources, the sharing of lithic cores would be hard to explain by raw material constraints. Rather, it reflects well-informed decisions, a behavioral pattern that contributed to the efficient assimilation of new and existing technological traditions. The Qesem cave inhabitants seem to have shared knowledge and followed traditions passed from generation to generation in many other aspects of life as well. For example, fire maintenance, flint procurement and recycling, and meat processing. The significant cultural and biological changes that characterized the late lower Paleolithic in the Levant must have required well-established mechanisms for sharing and knowledge transmission. young group members had to invest much time in acquiring knowledge in a variety of tasks in order to master the technological and social norms of the AYCC. These learning mechanisms are reflected in great variability in skill level exhibited by these cores. Such intra-assemblage variability might be explained by various levels of napping skills inherent to a group and not by learning processes. Variability in lithic assemblages can also be related to economic, demographic, cognitive, or social factors. However, as demonstrated, the distinctive cores and spatial patterns presented in this study are more likely to reflect learning mechanisms. In addition, similarities in technotypological features observed throughout the stratigraphic sequence indicate that nappers followed a shared technological tradition in the cave. It is my belief, or Ella's belief, that these mechanisms represent an early occurrence of cultural transmission. The question remains whether napping at Qesem Cave was taught by active guidance. The answer lies perhaps in the very definition of teaching and the existence of hunter-gatherer societies. While this issue is hotly debated, I follow Boyett and Hewlett's 2018 paper approach, whereby teaching is present in hunter-gatherers but manifests itself in ways that reflect distinct hunter-gatherer foundation schemas. Further described these different, Hewlett and Rutledge in 2016, further described these different manifestations of teaching, stating that various types and combinations of teaching exist. Natural pedagogy with demonstration, negative feedback with redirect, task assignment with natural pedagogy, demonstration with body movement, etc. Following this view, I suggest that the notable presence of two generation cores in specific locations at Qesem Cave, mostly near the fireplace, implied that the inhabitants practiced teaching through sharing. Among Middle and Upper Paleolithic societies, as well as contemporary hunter-gatherers, the hearth is a focal point of economic, social, and cultural activities, including knowledge transmission. Many studies emphasize the important role of sharing in human evolution, including sharing of knowledge. Recent evidence implies that the importance of teaching through sharing among wild chimpanzees in the Goalunga Triangle. The authors suggest a common evolutionary model for certain social learning behaviors, by which sharing among humans might thus constitute a very ancient mechanism. Teaching through sharing is practiced to some extent in contemporary hunter-gatherer societies in various ways to this day. Hayden and Cannon from 1984 reported that among traditional societies, self-learning activities tend to be those that are not related to craft production. Novice and skilled nappers in Iranian Jaya interact constantly with each other in a sitting together position, providing a supportive and effective learning context. The interaction includes physically demonstration techniques with no verbal explanation with no demonstration, and actual moving of a novice's hand to correctly accomplish a task. The study of lithic cores from Qesem Cave might be enriched by these ethnographic studies, which imply that self-learning, trial and error, go hand in hand with guidance and sharing of knowledge and objects by mature members of the group. And finally, the habitual use of fire, along with the organization of stone toolmaking, was part of a wider phenomenon of reorganization of the socio-economics of daily life in the form of base camps. a feature that emerged in the Middle Pleistocene by about 400,000 years ago. This study strengthens the link between these fundamental adaptive behaviours, illuminating the central role of fire in the social course of learning and the assimilation of new technologies, including blade production at the end of the Lower Paleolithic period. A significant turning point in human, cultural and biological evolution in the Levant. So there you go. Some very interesting takeaways there. The whole discussion was kind of a summary in a way of the analysis that was conducted here into the spatial distribution of these lithics. So one side of the cave seems to have individuals who are just learning to knap stone tools. We can also see in those particular areas that the choice of nodule in order to knap stone tools is very poor. Whereas if you go to other areas of the cave, particularly around the hearth, there seems to be a very systematic knapping methodology taking place. Very little mistakes are made. If mistakes are made, they are efficiently corrected for. And also the raw materials are exceptionally well chosen. So very interesting study there, and the lithics are really quite nice to look at. They're beautiful kind of paginated view. So if you enjoyed that video, please do give it a like, and let me know what you think of this particular study. Until next time, goodbye.